helped run Jeremy Corbyn's campaign over the summer. Also happened to be a councillor from the other end of the A13 down in Barking and Dagenham. I'd just like to actually start off, I think, by talking about what the young gentleman said here, about the scale of the challenge facing the Labour Party.
Can we leave quietly?
I'm a Corbyn supporter. I helped run his campaign over the summer. We delivered a big victory and pulled more people into the Labour Party at almost, as been said, at any point in its history before. A tremendously empowering and tremendously exciting summer. But we have to be honest, the scale of the challenge is really huge. And that for me is exactly why I'm enthused about momentum and about the new people that are joining the Labour Party. Because we've got to be honest about how we failed in the past as well. We lost 2 general elections. The last general election, a historic defeat on some reckoning. And we can't carry on just doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get exactly the same results. The Democrats learnt that very same lesson when Donald Trump beat them in loads of working class communities all over the Midwest of the USA just last week. And how shocked we were. 16% of people, communities, working class communities, trade unionists that had never voted Republican for switching to him. The same sorts of shock, it seems to me, that when communities like mine in Barking and Dagenham voted, actually no surprise to any of us there, according to me in Essex, 65% for Brexit, or the same in places like Hartlepool. The scale of the challenge to the Labour Party is absolutely massive. And that's why we've got to learn to try and do things differently. I believe that we can't just turn up on doors and say, voter ID conversations, how are you doing? Because the bottom line is, we can voter ID every single bloody person in the country, but if there aren't enough that already voted for the Labour Party, what is the point of doing that? So we've got to actually have conversations that are about people's lives, about understanding where they're coming from and where they're at, and what we as a party can actually do to rebuild their trust and to win their hearts and minds. Too often, the Labour movement is focused on statistics and the power of logic to win people over. Well, actually what people are looking for at the moment is hope and optimism. They're looking for someone to speak to their emotions and to their heart as much as to their mind. And unfortunately for us, at the moment, it's too often the populist right, whether it's in this country or across the globe, that are being more successful than doing that. And so for me as a community organiser, I spent about 5 years working with Hope Not Hate, running a huge campaign against BNP and Barking and Dagenham, also in places like Stoke-on-Trent and parts of Leicestershire where the BNP were very strong. Seeing that long-term work in communities where you actually go in and aren't able to win people over to your agenda, but through winning their trust and actually helping them get organised. In a similar way that we organise in the workplace, but organise in the community, giving people a sense back of power, that they have power over their own lives and they have power to change the destiny of their families, life chances and the community around them. Because actually too often people feel that they don't have that power. And what was the slogan that won that Brexit discussion, that referendum? Take back control. And I think we could do well to learn from that. Because for me, the core function of the Labour Party is about control. It's giving control to the 99%, to ordinary people, and taking power away from those at the very, very top and handing it to as many people as possible. Because ultimately we are a democratic movement. And so I think that's where, for me, momentum plays a really interesting role. The Labour Party has become, in my view, a bit fossilised, a bit stuck in its ways of doing things. I've been out and campaigned and knocked on hundreds of doors in hundreds of seats all across this country. But just doing that, and doing that by rote, is not enough. We need both a story, a powerful narrative of hope, of investment, of real change that people can believe in. And I think at the moment that Jeremy Corbyn is starting to sketch that out and starting to take that offer out to communities right across this country. And I think he's just at the beginning of that process. And in a strange way, as difficult as the campaign was over the summer, as difficult as that showdown with the PLP was for our party, in a strange way, it actually galvanised Jeremy and the people around him. And I think he's now in a stronger position to implement his agenda. And actually has come out of it in a strange way, seen with more credibility and the ability to actually show leadership. And I think that he has got an incredibly tough job. But what we have got is that 600,000 people. And I think the challenge for all of us, and particularly if you're councillors, if you're people that are active in your trade union branch, if you're people that are already campaigning on a daily or weekly basis for the Labour Party, is to help those people find a home properly in our party. Because too often I hear, oh well, you know, these new members are just interested in campaigning online and not turning out to do things. Well, if people are joining a political party to change the world, and the first thing they get asked to do is to turn up on a Saturday morning and go and deliver some leaflets in the rain, that's not necessarily going to convince them that that's part of an agenda to change the world. And so I think we need to have a serious rethink. How do we campaign? How do we have conversations on the doorstep that change people's minds rather than just find out how they vote? How do we actually run projects in communities so that people turn to us, not necessarily to charities, to be able to help them with solutions for their lives? I'd like to see Momentum, the Labour Party, doing things like running food banks, running social solidarity programmes. Because actually, that is how you win hearts and minds of people in many parts of this country, who may be very fearful about globalisation, about immigration, about all sorts of issues that they feel are having, rightly or wrongly, an impact on their lives. And if we're seen as the first port of call to actually turn to help them, whether empowering that local council or not, I think that can be a real game changer. And if we can't find a strategy to use those 600,000 new members and the old members as well, and draw them together, and to actually kind of overcome what I feel is becoming a little bit of a divide between new and old members. Because I'd go back to what I said at the start. We, if as a party, keep on doing the same thing, have lost 2 general elections and have lost millions and millions of votes over the last 10 years. Now, you can't blame Jeremy Corbyn for that. Social democracy is at a crisis point, not just in this country, but all across Europe. And at the moment, we've got an opportunity. I feel that our country is really at a crossroads. We have this phenomenal movement that's growing around Germany. It is quite populist, and actually I'm unashamed about that, because I think, you know, it's fine actually on the left to be populist, because our populism is about giving control back to the many. It's not about demonising the few, and I think that's the key difference. But if we don't step into that vacuum and offer people hope, and offer people an agenda that actually they believe is going to go further than just saying we're going to guarantee you a minimum wage or living wage job. We're actually going to restore pride and dignity to working class communities. So think, in this community here, this part of Essex, where do we need to win? We need to win in places like Basildon. We need to win in places like Thurrock. Places like Thurrock I know quite well, it's not that far from Barking and Dagenham. People there that were previously voting Labour switched in their droves to vote for UKIP, and in fact letting the Tories win that seat for a second time in a row. In this part of the world, some of those communities are the ones where our biggest challenge as a Labour Party is, and it's probably a really tough challenge, because some of those people think that some of the solutions we're putting forward may not be for them, because of what they've heard in the media and what they've heard the people in our own party who want to do down Jeremy say. But actually, when you go and say to those people, we're here for you, and we want to restore pride and dignity to your community, and that means not jobs that are just the sort of Sports Direct level, you know, minimum wage or living wage jobs, but we want to actually invest in manufacturing. We want to invest in the ports and the docks that are there in that part of the Thames, because we want to pay people wages that allow them to plan for their future, that allow them to maybe buy a home, buy a car, go on holiday, maybe help their kids go to university. I think those things are quite basic propositions that we are serious about putting forward, and which the Tories are not. Their agenda is just to privatise and to squeeze more and more out of the rest of us, while the top get richer and richer and richer, whilst wages for most people stagnate. And I think that is unacceptable. But as I say, we are at a crossroads, because if we don't build an engaging, caring and inclusive form of left populism in this movement that's built in our party, then UKIP in this country, Trump in the United States, Le Pen in France, and all sorts of other nasty, populist right-wing parties are ready to fill that vacuum, and already are in some countries filling that vacuum. These people that say we need to rush back to the centre ground, I think they need really to pull their head out of the sand. We're headed in a direction in this country where it's been more divided than it's ever been before. And actually for me, I think it is quite centre ground to say we're not going to have any more privatisation of our public services, and that we expect that people should be paid decent wages, and that we expect that we're not going to allow our NHS to be privatised anymore, and that we expect to change the narrative so that investment is not a dirty word. And we move away from this mad idea that you run our economy like someone's bank account. If you're investing in people, if you're investing in infrastructure, if you're investing in industries, that is not building a deficit, that's building a future with jobs and with creation of a wider and deeper economy in new sorts of industries and new technologies. And that is something that Jeremy's been talking about an awful lot, because I think those things are popular. And we need to be able to find a way of cutting through. And that's where I think things like Momentum come in. Momentum is a space in which things can be piloted. They might not get everything right. You know, they're not the Labour Party, but about 90% of them are Labour Party members. And so we should allow them to be able to campaign and to try out new ways of doing things and use that almost as a turbocharger to increase the capacity and the ability of the Labour Party to campaign. Whether it's online or offline, whether it's building food banks, whether it's building social media communities to win hearts and minds online. Both of those things are equally important. And I think we need to say, look, we haven't got things right. We need to use this opportunity to fundamentally redesign how we as a Labour movement actually are prepared and able to win a general election. And it is going to be tough. We are behind in the polls, but we've got more money and more people than we've ever had in my entire lifetime. And if we can't begin to turn those polls around, then I really think we need to have a fundamental discussion about what any of us are doing here on a Saturday night. Because I know that we can. Because people are looking for something different. And people are looking for something that gives them hope, gives them some feeling that actually the future will be better for their children rather than worse. And for the first time we are in a situation where one generation is looking to the next and their opportunities are diminished compared to the one above them. And I think that anyone thinks that that is pretty much unacceptable. And so we have a huge challenge, but I honestly think that we're prepared and able to rise to that challenge. And I'd like to hear people's ideas this evening about how potentially we can do that and how in your communities here in Essex and across the east of England we can actually do that. And to take these new ways of working, whether it's community organising, whether it's turning online activists into activists on the street, whether it's winning hearts and minds, whether it's saving the local hospital or campaigning against Tory cuts against councils. We know that we're at a point, if we don't draw a line in the sand, this country is going to go in a fundamentally different direction for the next 10 or 20 years. And I think we've got an opportunity here actually to build that populist, left-wing, engaging, inclusive agenda that actually can win hearts and minds. It can win people in London, but equally can win people in Hartlepool. It can equally win people in Thurrock. And I'm really inspired whenever I've been with Jeremy all across the country to see tens of thousands of people turning out events who are prepared to come and to do that work because they're looking for something. They're looking for an agenda of hope. And I think it's only us as the Labour movement, the Labour Party, that can offer that agenda of hope. So starting here tonight, you know, we'd like to begin that conversation and take on that challenge. Whether the general election happens next year or whether it happens in 2020, we need to go out and we need to start working and we need to do things in a different way, a more engaging way, a more, I suppose, friendly and warm way that actually says anyone can come and be part of our party who shares enough of our values. Stop the infighting. We are here to win a general election, and to win a general election that won't let people down, that will transform our country for the next 30 years. And I think that's what we're about, and we should be very proud of that and go out and make that happen. Thank you very much.